Hello, and thank you for joining us for this Merit CX webinar, Engaging Your Frontline in CX. We're glad you've joined us today. I'm Melissa Harrod, and I'll be moderating today's event. With me today are our presenters, Jennifer Passini, Senior Director of CX Solutions Strategy, and Jesse Stout, Product Manager. We're happy to have them with us, and I'll introduce them more formally in just a minute. Before we get started, we're often asked two questions. Is this webinar being recorded? Yes. This webcast is being recorded, and you will receive a link to the presentation within the next 24 hours. Second, will there be Q&A? We are planning to have time for Q&A after the presenters conclude the presentation. If you have a question during the presentation, just type it into the question box on your screen, and we'll get to as many of those submitted questions as we can during the Q&A time. So as mentioned, our presenters today are Jennifer Passini and Jesse Stout. Jennifer Passini is a Solutions Strategies individual for our financial services sector at Merit CX. She has been at the organization for 19 years and has had a variety of roles throughout the years, including designing and executing CX programs focused on touchpoint and frontline experiences. Today, Jennifer works with our sales and client success organizations to ensure that our prospects understand client experience and the best aspects of the Merit CX solution, and how our organization can help meet the needs of their CX programs. Jennifer serves as a subject matter expert and provides thought leadership for CX design, execution, marketing research, and financial services. Jesse Stout is a senior product manager at Merit CX. Prior to his experience as a product manager, Jesse held roles as a product owner, manager of customer experience, training manager, and strategic consultant, with 7 years in automotive software and 5 years in financial services. Jesse holds a bachelor's degree from Brigham Young University in linguistics and is a current MBA candidate at BYU. California born and raised, Jesse has lived abroad for several years in Central America and Japan and loves communicating with people from all over the world. And with that, Jennifer, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Melissa, and thanks for everyone for joining today. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us, and hopefully you've read the summary of what we're planning to talk about, but I thought I'd just briefly touch on what we're planning to cover today. So as we focus on the front line today, we're focused on those people that are customer facing and who you would think are the face of your organization. They provide point of contact for a lot of different things, including purchasing and service delivery. And unless your organization today is completely digital and your customers have no human interaction with anyone at your organization, then you rely heavily on your frontline. Again, frontline here are your customer-facing employees, such as if you're within banking, they're your branch staff or call center reps, advisors, agents, your in-store personnel, all of those people that work with your customers every day. Today, we're going to focus on best practices for your CX program for your frontline employees. This will include recognizing the importance of your frontline, engaging your frontline in your CX program, specifically by sharing information with them and setting expectations related to their role for the customer and their role within your CX program. So that's what we're going to focus on today. And I just thought I'd start. For those of you that have joined our webinars in the past, you might have noticed that I've used this example in the past for other webinars, but I think that it's important. I think all of us can relate to our local coffee shop. Hopefully you can relate with that. I know that I go to Starbucks nearly every day, and I go so much that I kind of know when different people are working, and they know me, and I know them. And when I think about the face of Starbucks, I certainly don't think about the CEO, or I don't think about all of the product managers that are working back at the corporate office thinking about the next seasonal coffee to come out. I'm definitely thinking about the barista that I talk with on Wednesday mornings, because I know that Sarah always works on Wednesday mornings. So when you think about the face of a particular company, and when your customers think about the face of your company, they're not thinking about the leadership of the company necessarily. They're thinking about the people that they work with every day. A company's customer-facing employees are the most critical for how customers perceive the organization and perceive their experiences. And then sometimes that face of the organization in terms of those frontline employees are also how they perceive the company in general. So given the importance of these frontline employees and customer experience in driving business outcomes, how focused are you on your frontline? And that's what we're really going to focus on as the discussion continues here today. So why does it matter? I probably don't need to tee this up because I think that for all of you that have joined, you understand the importance of your frontline. But we know that customer experience is how companies are going to differentiate and how they differentiate today. For those of your customers that have great experiences, they're willing to spend more with you and buy more with you. And we know that there is a definite negative impact for when businesses don't deliver a great customer experience. We know that there's a lot to lose. What we want to stress here is that frontline employees have a significant impact on customers' experiences. There's a couple of important statements that Merits subscribes. First, happy employees equal happy customers. We've shown that in a number of different ways, but I think that we can all agree that it's important to have happy employees in order and to ensure that you have happy customers. The second statement is that your employees are your company's most valuable assets in delivering positive customer experiences. So we want to make sure that we're engaging your frontline employees because they're ultimately, as the face of your organization, they're ultimately your brand killers when you don't engage them. So it's not a leap to understand that disengaged and happy employees is the ultimate brand killer. We know that your employees, particularly your frontline employees, are responsible for how your company will differentiate based on customer experiences. And we also know that they can be your source or contributors to lost business or negative business results when customers have poor experiences. So given that we're placing a lot of expectations on frontline employees, let's kind of level set on that a bit. So considering that your frontline is the face of your organization and that they can single-handedly, in a lot of cases, be responsible for killing your brand in terms of customer experience, isn't it interesting that for many organizations, a lot of the frontline employees are the most junior of all staff, or they're the entry-level staff within the organization? We're certainly asking a lot of our frontline staff just in terms of customer experience, but that's not all they're responsible for. They're also responsible and may have sales targets. They're responsible for the maintenance of locations, and they're responsible for, in addition, they're just responsible for service delivery of what your company provides. With the weight of all those responsibilities being, and also being the customer's face of the organization, it's extremely important that you empower and train and tool your front staff and give them the right tools to be successful in their jobs. With that, let's talk about how we can maximize Frontline CX. Now that we've established the importance of the frontline, let's talk about how you can maximize that through your CX initiatives. How can you empower your frontline to be the best face for your company? There are 3 strategies we encourage. First, information is king or queen, and over-communication is not possible. Today, we focus on how to best communicate with your frontline to prepare them for customers and for delivering the customer experience that you expect of them. Second, information sharing should be two-way. So you certainly have expectations of the frontline. You have expectations of how they're going to deliver your products and services. But as I mentioned, your customers are also your most valuable asset in understanding how prepared they are to do that, or how well your expectations can be realized for customers and how it's actually experienced and perceived by the customer. So you should rely on your frontline to help shape your customer experience and also your continuous improvement strategies. Third, we'll talk about how data and establishing the right expectations can empower employees to be your best asset for the customer. So those are the 3 strategies that we're going to focus on today within the presentation. Again, we're going to talk about that from a data sharing and a data-driven perspective because there's a lot to be learned there. Again, very much two-way. How you do that is through a communication plan. So let's start with what should be communicated. we recommend that our clients consider developing a communication strategy specific to your frontline. This is a great way to share reasons for the program that you're executing in terms of strategy, how the program will work for them in terms of information sharing, and what the frontline's employee is in this program. We encourage that training also be considered, but a lot of times we focus on training specific to service delivery. We also recommend training specific to customer centricity, and if you're leveraging tools to share data related to customer experience, there's obviously some training involved in that. A lot of the training should focus on how they can access VOC, what they should do with it once they have it, and what your expectations are of them, and listening to the customer, remediating needs, and taking action to support broader company strategies around customer experience. Before I turn it over to Jesse to talk about how we do that at ActionCX through our FieldCx offering, I wanted to share some specific things about what we would encourage you to consider as part of your communication plan. So result sharing is a big part of that. So think about what you need to share related to VOC that's going to be important to their job and important to customers. Again, information is king or queen, and the best way to engage the frontline is in sharing a feedback about the experiences that they're having with customers and the feedback that they're receiving. These results can be used for tracking performance. They can also be used to support coaching and training plans. But most importantly, the frontline really wants to know what they're doing well so that they can continue it. Think about how to package results for the frontline. They obviously want to see their current performance, but trends can be particularly important as they look to see how well some of the changes that they've considered or the training that they've received has improved or impacted how well they're performing for customers. Share their goal. Goal is highly motivating, and allow for organizational comparisons. Again, both of these approaches are very motivating to get people to look beyond the score, but in terms of what they can do to be the best. One of the most frequent requests that we receive is that our frontline already uses a lot of different systems to do their job. So they might leverage a system to support sales. They might leverage a different system for transactional work that they're doing for individual customers. So giving them another system to access for customer feedback can be problematic. So really think through how you can package results in one system to support all of those needs and to give them a quick read on not only their customer experience performance, but how well they're doing in their job overall.
All right, thanks, Jennifer.
Sorry.
At sorry, go ahead.
We help our customers package that data and share results at the front line using FieldCx. And so I'm going to turn over to Jesse to talk about how we do that. So Jesse, do you want to move on to FieldCx?
Sure, I can take it from here. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks.
So it's a pleasure to be with everyone today. At ActionCX, we researched frontline user engagement and found that businesses are most likely to see the change that they desire when their front lines are armed with actionable data. And beyond just having the data, the front line needs to be able to act upon that data from within the same place. So we built a tool set that makes it easy for them to gain insights and then calls them to action. So this tool set, which we call FieldCx, allows individuals, team managers, unit level managers, and above unit level managers to see relevant information regarding their performance or their teams or units performance, as well as any problems that need resolution. And then we make it easy for them to know what their next steps are, actually take that action in order to be able to drive immediate improvement. So the FieldCx suite is comprised of 3 different modules, the first of which is our reporting toolset that is purpose-built for these frontline users, and it empowers the frontline by providing insight into their performance, including a view of those individual responses so they can see what their customers are actually saying. Now, FieldCx reporting shows your frontline employees the data and the insights that are really important for them, and it does so in an intuitive package. We give them just the right amount of information so that instead of being overburdened with all sorts of reports, they can focus on just what they need to do to be able to rescue customers and improve performance. So embedded in the FieldCx suite, we also have our case management and action planning modules. And the case management helps us to track individual customer issues, as well as ensure that the appropriate person is following up and performing the tasks necessary to be able to rescue these at-risk customers. And as the front line uses the reporting and case management tools, they may encounter systemic issues that require additional efforts and actions in order to drive lasting improvements for the business. And this is where our action planning module comes into play. And if we identify opportunities either for individual or for organizational improvement, we can create an action plan and then assign it to the relevant employees and then measure their performance against that plan and track their progress moving forward. So it's really important that these three tools work well together. The frontline really is so busy with their day jobs that they need to be able to quickly and easily glean the insights into what they need to work on, take action and know what those actions should be to be able to resolve the client issues, and then have a way to be able to track the long-term personal progress as well as any organizational improvement. So FieldCx empowers your frontline teams by putting that information, the right information, into the right hands. And our dashboards in FieldCx are controlled centrally and published widely, which really helps to strengthen CX program governance and enables consistent program implementation. So you can control which reports people see, which filters they have access to in those reports, which fields they can or can't see, either individually or based on their role in the organization. And the user interface is intuitive, it's consistent, it's fast. So even if you have a lot of people across the country that are accessing it at the same time, it's going to be performant for you. So each employee, team, and location in FieldCx will get their relevant data. So a frontline employee, the one who's actually the face of the business and working with clients, can actually see their own performance against their goals as well as against the rest of the region or company. They can see their areas of improvement, any issues that they need to resolve, as well as any ongoing processes that their manager has put in place to be able to drive systemic improvement. Now, a team or unit level manager can see individual and team level performance against goals and can make comparisons between different employees to be able to identify coaching opportunities and effectively manage their team or location. They can monitor their individual employees are doing what they need to be doing in order to be able to put out those client fires today, right now. And they can also create and track performance improvement plans to be able to drive larger scale improvements over time. Now, an above unit level manager, so someone who, like a regional manager, they're technically still considered part of the field, right? They're still the ones who are interacting with your individual units, with your individual locations. And so it's important for them to be able to interact with the people there and be able to coach them and hold them accountable and help them to make the improvements that they need. And so they can do the similar things that the unit manager can, but they're also able to do this, over all of the locations that they oversee. So all of these things are really helpful and necessary to be able to remove barriers to adoption on your front lines. We need to make it as simple as possible, as fast as possible for them to use. We need it to be clear and easy for them to understand what they're supposed to be doing, what their actions should be. And through this, we're able to drive individual behavior and change and make systemic improvements. So ultimately, FieldCx it helps frontline employees to understand what your vision is and what actions they can take to ensure that your customers are at the center of everything that they do. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Jennifer for a bit to talk a little bit about how we can help frontline employees to do just that.
Great, thanks, Jesse. So, really what we're trying to build, even at the front line, is a customer-centric culture. And probably the easiest place to do that is within the front line, because they're working with your customers every day, and they understand customer experience probably better than anyone else. So as we consider the customer-centric culture, we want to set appropriate expectations based on the data that they've been given. Foundationally, giving access to VOC at the front line is the best way to create a customer-centric culture. But it's only fortified by ensuring that they're not only receiving results, but they understand how best to take action on what they're receiving, the feedback that they're receiving, and how what they're learning can ultimately feed back and continually supporting efforts around improving customer experience overall. While data is important to a customer-centric culture, ultimately the action that you take based on that is truly what defines whether your company is actually customer-centric or not. So I want to be clear, Merit CX is a CX measurement company, but most importantly, we are a management company. And so while we measure customer experience really, really well, what we really want to help our clients focus on is how best to take action on the feedback that you're receiving, and that's what creates a customer-centric culture. So when we think about the front line and what expectations should be set around VOC programs, we think about it in these 4 ways. So we encourage, obviously, results review. They're getting feedback. They should be reviewing that feedback. As they identify areas where maybe they're not performing as well, they should leverage what they know and the feedback that's been provided, particularly unstructured feedback, to explore root cause to see if there's something that can be fixed. Second, they should leverage those results to help track performance. So, depending on the program, we encourage either team or individual performance, and those results can be used to support employee performance planning and ultimately coaching and training. So if you were to ask your front line, they could easily tell you the things that they feel like they could be better trained on to ultimately support a better customer experience. And their feedback helps to support that in terms of coaching and training initiatives. The third thing is that, and this is probably the most important for creating a customer-centric culture, is that everyone in your organization is accountable to the customer. And at the front line, individual remediation of customer issues is important. So I know that as feedback is coming in, the feedback received is not only going to give some indication of how well the organization is meeting customer expectations, the feedback received is also going to help to identify either opportunities to fix things that are broken or opportunities to deepen relationships. And we encourage case management in both of those ways, actually. So one thing that we know for sure is that your customers are willing to provide feedback. Their willingness to continue to provide feedback is 100% dependent on the visibility that you give to them that you're taking action on the feedback provided. And individual case management, which Jesse's going to talk about in a little bit, is a great way to show that you've not only heard your customer, but that you're working to remediate their issues, or even acknowledging that they provided feedback. And then the fourth thing is to provide your frontline with tangible outcomes. So what happens when improvements are made? What's the impact of change? Some of this is tied to connecting your feedback to business outcomes. So you can say, when we deliver a great customer experience, we're more likely to retain these customers, and this has a financial and business impact for the company. For you, it could be that we are establishing goals and incentives for delivering a great customer experience. So making those tangible outcomes real for them is important, not only for what it means for them, but what it means for the business as well. Jesse, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the things I just mentioned in terms of employee tracking and case management?
Yeah, I can do that. So we'll go ahead and take a few moments here to walk through some different screens in FieldCx and some of the ways that it can be used to do exactly what Jennifer's talking about here, driving improvements at the front lines. So this is an example of an employee report that we've built. And if I'm an employee on the front lines, I can come in and I can see what my customers are saying about me. I can see what our overall satisfaction scores are. And for me, if we look at this, clearly I can see that I'm severely underperforming against our goal and that I'm being outperformed by the rest of the company. And if we look at the bottom left, we can see that based on our true driver analysis, that my overall satisfaction scores are low in large part due to the fact that the people who we work with sometimes don't find it easy to do business with us. So that typically would be an area where I would need to improve or expect to need to improve and maybe get some coaching on. So as a frontline employee, I can easily assess my performance and identify any areas of improvement that I have. So in this case, as an employee, my company has let me see the trends that the platform has found through our text analytics, including suggestions from my clients on how we can improve their experience. So this helps me to be aware of some of those improvement areas and look for patterns that I may need to work on. And if they want me to be able to do so, I could even click through to see the full response for my clients. So this is an example of one of our customized views. As platform clients, you can go in and customize this page so that it shows the relevant data that you want your users to see. And so this will include any fields from the survey response that you want to display here. And so from here, we can dive in and get a better idea of all of the things that a client has said about us, and that helps inform us of things that we might need to do to immediately resolve those issues. And if we wanted to, we could manually create a case here for a coworker to follow up. But instead, let's go ahead and move on to our case inbox and take a look at some of the cases that have already been created for us. So this is our case inbox here, and I can come into case management in FieldCx and see all the cases that I own or over which I've been designated a watcher. And so this list will either be populated with cases that have been created for me by someone else because they wanted me to follow up on a client issue, or with cases that were automatically created based on business rules that we have configured in the back end. So for example, we could have a case created anytime a client responds to a survey with a low score on a given metric, or maybe if a specific theme is found in the comments, then it can generate that case and we can get a notification right away knowing that we've got something to do and need to follow up with our clients. So let's say I click into this second option here, the second line in our cases, and it's going to take us into our case form. And this is also customizable. We can see that we have a case in here that has been open for 4 hours, while we have a goal of responding within 8 hours and a goal of closing the case within a day. So as you can see, this one was created via a high priority alert that is set up for our program. So what this does is for high value customers, clients that we've designated as a high value customer, if they answer our overall satisfaction question with a low score, then it's going to generate a case and assign it to us. And so we can see who the customer is here. We have the contact information right here so that if necessary, we can reach out and start that follow-up process and start remediating their issues. So let's see what the recommended action is in this case. And to do that, we're just going to scroll down a little bit on that page. And that brings us here to where we've displayed this case priority matrix. And this is the best practice that helps provide direction to the front lines and helps lend consistency to client follow-up across your program. So it helps them to focus follow-up efforts to have the highest impact. And we can see that they are upset because of the difficulty and length of time that it took them to get a loan. And we see that they have a low overall satisfaction and a customer value of high. So based on that, we know that the case priority should be high. And based on the case priority, we see a next best action over on the right side. So if it's a high priority case, we're instructed to have a manager call the customer to directly resolve the issues. And if it's a medium priority, then we would be told to send a personalized message to the customer. And if it's low, we can maybe just send them a template response, just letting them know that we care about them and we appreciate their feedback. And so as a frontline employee, I know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And this really helps to add consistency to our process, even if we have multiple offices all over the country. In this instance, we know that it's a high priority case, so we'll be having our manager reach out. We can message them directly from within this tool by going to the Messages tab at the top to let them know that a manager will be reaching out. So here we are in the Messages section, and from here I can manually compose an email, or I could pre-populate it with predefined text. So we'll go ahead and choose the initial contact response that we've got there to let them know that a manager will be reaching out to them shortly. From there, it's going to go ahead and load that text in, and we can send that off, letting them know the manager will be in touch. And then it goes ahead and logs that message for us here. Oh, let's go back here. So anytime we have interactions with our clients, we're going to want to make sure that we add activity notes in there so that we have a record for ourselves of the interactions that we've had, as well as for any people that need to have a view into the actions or the tasks that we've taken with those clients to try to resolve their issues. So we'll say that our manager called, spoke to the client, learned more about their frustrations with all their paperwork and the back and forth that are inherent to the loan process, and they listened to the client and did what they needed to take any necessary steps to resolve the issue. And from there, we would go ahead, update the status of the case, update the outcome. We could log a root cause so that we would be able to track over all of our cases if there are any sorts of themes that are arising. In this case, we know that it's that we're being, we're difficult to do business with. They wanted to get a loan, but it was a very long and tedious process. But in this case, as a frontline employee, I feel like maybe there's a little bit more that I need to do with this. I don't necessarily feel like it's my fault that our company's process is lengthy, and I want the people above me to know about that. So I can click on this link. It's kind of on the bottom right side that talks about making an action plan suggestion. So when we click on this, it'll pull up this this tool that will allow the frontline to be able to make their suggestions about potential action plans. And I could write something about why the loan process is too lengthy for most clients. Maybe I've noticed something. I can provide some insight to my managers about things that they could potentially change in order to streamline the experience for our customers. And then this will be raised to the right people who have the ability to go ahead and create an action plan if they see fit. So this two-way communication is crucial for being able to improve the customer experience. The people on the front lines often are able to provide really valuable perspectives that we may not be aware of, and that allows us to make the adjustments that make both the customers and the employees happier. So moving on here, we've got, we're going to shift gears a little bit and take the perspective of a manager. And on this dashboard, we can see similar types of metrics here, but we can do so for all of the teams that we manage and see all of the employees there. So we can see how the branch is performing, we can see our performance against the region and the company, and we can see which employees may need some coaching as we have some conditional formatting there on the top right chart, highlighting the people who are below our goal of 85 for overall satisfaction there for employee service. So again, our true driver analysis helps us to understand what attributes are driving those scores. And we keep seeing this theme of problems with ease of doing business. And as a manager, I may want to see things broken down by different teams or managers, maybe to find if there are specific people that they're having trouble doing business with, or just to maybe dig a little bit deeper. And we can either build charts that have these team breakdowns, or we can set up a filter using the intuitive filtering system that FieldCx has. So over here, we would just click on that little filter icon, and the filter bar would open up, the filter panel. And it's a very intuitive filtering system that we've got, similar to Amazon and other tools, that makes it really simple for people, for our FieldCx users, for our frontline users, to be able to go in and filter and kind of see the view of things that are important for them. So if I'm wanting to see things by teams, I can come in here as a manager, and I can filter by individual team leads or by the teams, or however I've got it organized. And as I do so, the relevant charts are updated, and then I can start to isolate individuals or teams that may need some coaching. So let's real quick take a look at how case management works for managers. Now, managers also do have a view of the same case inbox, as they may have cases or instances where they need to work cases or potentially have visibility into the cases of their staff. But really, this case inbox is purpose-built for a caseworker. As a manager, I can see cases I own here, I can see cases I'm watching, and I can automatically be added as a watcher to any new cases or any cases that meet the criteria that I set. But aside from this tool, I have other better ways to see case info for my branch. So using FieldCx reporting, we can actually set up case reports that will actually show the types of data that you want to see. So we can get a view into the branch's unresolved cases or view a breakdown of the common root causes on our cases. We can see what the individual comments are, helping to potentially surface any issues that need resolution or find some recurring themes there. And this is all complemented by our text analytics, which can help to find those recurring themes. So all of this gives insight into what we can do to help our frontline staff to improve the customer experience. Now, as a manager, I've noticed that there's a recurring theme here of us being difficult to work with. Now, while we don't see it here, one of our employees, as we did previously, also implied as much when suggesting an action plan. So as we see systemic issues, whether for our whole location or for individuals, we can then set action plans to help drive improvements. Now this is the action plan section of FieldCx, and here, very similar to our case view, we have a list of all of the different action plans that we own or over which we are watchers so that we can have a view into what others are working on, even if we are not ultimately accountable for that plan. So similar to cases, we set action plans to be assigned automatically when the platform identifies systemic issues. For example, if we see a common problem of being difficult to work with, we can create a rule that will generate this plan so that it will be assigned to the appropriate people. And we would, of course, devise a strategy to counter these issues, tying behaviors to the metrics that we're hoping to see increase. And then we would train the appropriate employees on how to improve these behaviors and then track progress for each of the action plans that we've got with a target date. So we hold our employees accountable for completing the action plans that are assigned to them. And as we do this, we see this loop of performance measurement to action to remeasurement to action to remeasurement, and it keeps us in this continual state of improvement. And as we focus on improving the underlying behavior, this allows us to take better care of our customers, which results in happier clients who will stay with us longer. Now, I've got a couple other scenarios here that I'd like to outline for which FieldCx can be a great fit. So in this scenario, I'm a call center manager and I want to understand where some coaching opportunities lie. So looking at this, I can see that we've got some satisfaction metrics for our agents here. It appears that our scores have been steadily declining of late. And so looking at the satisfaction scores for the different customer types we serve, I can see that we tend to score low with fraud and security. And this helps me know that maybe there's a coaching opportunity there in that area, in that sector. And so we can see the root causes of our cases, and we can see also that, you know, maybe we're not closing cases quickly enough. Perhaps we need to do something about the speed of our service. Maybe we need to hire more people or adjust our scheduling to have better coverage during the crucial times. Maybe we need to better train our reps so that we can resolve more issues on the first call. Now, here we've got our conditional formatting that identifies that one of our reps' ward is underperforming. We could then go in and filter out the dashboard just to show wards data. So we could open up that filter by ward as a representative, and then we're looking at the same data just for ward. So that allows us to dig in and look at ward's responses from his customers and figure out what types of things we need to focus on. Now, doing this, it just helps us to get the detail appropriate for that rep and be able to identify those coaching opportunities. Now here we have a view into the overall sentiment of the comments, and we can see the individual comments from our clients to be able to inform any discussions that we're going to have with our key team members, any coaching that we need to do. We also have our results of our text analytics that can help us pinpoint the most common negative topics that we see so that we know where to focus our efforts. So, you know, from this view, we could create any cases as necessary, which would eventually inform any action plans that we would put into place to drive systemic improvements. So in this scenario here, this last scenario that I want to walk through, we'll suppose that I'm an account manager for a B2B company, and I've got a list of clients that I manage, and I need to be able to see who's happy and who's at risk. And we can do this here. So we may have a relationship score target, for example, that we want to see trends for. We need to be able to understand our performance and what is driving our scores down to help us to focus on the things that are going to bring our scores up. And more importantly, to be able to provide the world-class experience that our clients expect from us. So here we can see if clients we can see if any clients that are using certain solutions are more likely to recommend us than those who use other solutions or pay for other solutions with us. And we can see the scores for each of our accounts displayed with conditional formatting if they fall below the goal that we've set for them. So we can find our at-risk customers here. And as we do so, we can show the amount of revenue that we have at risk, breaking it down by our at-risk customers. And these dashboards help us know where to focus our efforts as a B2B account manager. The last slide here just shows a breakdown of the overall comment sentiment for our accounts, along with some recent comments, just to help us to have a pulse on our business. We can see what the root causes are for their support cases to help us get a feel for the challenges that they're facing as they do business with us. And this empowers us as the account managers to have the right internal conversations to drive change. So if I see that there's a support issue, I can have those conversations with support to be able to determine the best way to proceed and make improvements to make systemic change. And so we could go ahead and suggest an action plan here to ensure that we are driving those changes forward and tracking the change that we need. So these are just a few of the different recommendations we have for field reporting and action. And to see the business results that you desire, it's really crucial that your frontline employees have the tools that they need to be able to identify the areas of improvement and then to be able to act to make those needed changes from within the same place. So as people on the front line gain insights, take action, make adjustments, and then track progress against their goals, we see continuous improvement and behavioral change that drives business success and ensures that the face of your business is providing the world-class experience that your customers deserve. So I'll go ahead and turn it back to Jennifer now to wrap things up.
Thanks, Jesse. So like Jesse said, we'll go ahead and wrap things up, and Melissa, after this, we'll take some questions. So there's three things we want you to take away from today. First, that we can all agree that your frontline employees are your most valuable assets in understanding customer experience. And for that reason, you need to make sure that you're building a two-way process for not only sharing customer feedback with them, but allowing them to provide feedback to the organization on what's impacting customers or how customer experience can be better delivered, or what tools and processes they can be given to better do their jobs. Successful CX programs are built on that two-way information sharing. And importantly, set expectations with them, not only in terms of reviewing customer feedback, make it part of their day-to-day processes as they're focused on customers, that they're also looking at feedback, but they know appropriate ways to take action. Action, as Jesse was kind of running through those different slides that he has, it's really clear that action is in two ways. Action is with the customer, so as they're providing feedback, that you have a process in place for action to be taken to acknowledge their feedback and remediate issues or problems as they're reported. But the second part of action is to be able to report feedback and actionability at higher levels of the organization, so that the entire organization has transparency and a great view of what customers are experiencing at the front line, so that issues, more systemic issues and continuous improvement efforts can be focused on. So your ultimate expectation is to create a customer-centric culture. You do that because you know that it's going to have a positive impact on your business and a positive impact on your financial goals. And to be clear, what this means for the front line is just to empower them with information and empower them on appropriate ways to take action for your business and take action for your customers. So Melissa, with that, we will turn it over to you for questions.
Perfect, thank you. So we got one question or a few questions, but I'll start with this one. The question is, do you share negative comments with your front line? I think this can probably be addressed a couple ways, both with how the platform addresses negative comments as well as best practices for doing so. So Jesse, if you want to start and talk about the platform actually incorporating negative comments, and then maybe Jennifer, you can speak to best practices around how to address negative comments.
Sure, yeah, I can speak to that. So definitely we have the ability in the platform to be able to highlight the negative comments. If we wanted to, we could, display a list of the negative comments for our frontline. If, for example, if I wanted my frontline employees to be able to see it, if I wanted individuals to be able to see their comments, we could do that. We would have the ability as well to be able to display negative comments as well without them being able to dig in if we wanted to show overall negative types of comments from our whole branch or dealership or clinic or whatever our unit is. We could do that, and we could restrict the ability for them to drill in and see which client said it, or who that was attached to, which rep that was attached to. Obviously, and I'll let Jennifer speak to what the best practices are there, but we have the ability to display those. We can show a chart that breaks down all of the negative sentiment comments that we've got, or if we have any sort of negative themes that rise up through our text analytics, we can surface those to them as well so that they can drill in and see those, if that's what we would prefer.
Yep, and from a best practice standpoint, overall it's best to share all feedback received, whether it's positive or negative. Constructive negative feedback can definitely help to highlight areas that need to be improved in terms of individual performance of the employee, or just opportunities for the company to consider because it's having a negative impact on customer feedback. There are times when it's a good time to remove negative feedback, particularly if it's biased about a particular employee, not related to their performance, but about characteristics of that employee, whether it's racially driven or something else. If they are making comments that aren't related to experience and they're providing negative feedback about something else, that might be a good reason to remove. And I think that's, we didn't talk a lot about it today, and that's probably another whole webinar on text analytics, but one benefit of including text analytics as part of how you analyze the unstructured feedback coming in at the front line is that we're able to categorize and also pull the things out that we just shouldn't share. But in general, it's a best practice to share all feedback, whether it's negative or positive, related to the experiences that customers are having or the performance of employees.
Great, thanks, Jennifer. And to add on to that, we did get a question about how if there's just general negative scores across the board, how to really show incremental improvements or focus on some of the positives. So I don't know if you could speak to some best practices around that.
So I think that a great way to show the positives, and again, it's how you package things and how you design your reports to do that. So one way that Jesse talked about highlighting the positives is through conditional formatting. A lot of times we think about leveraging conditional formatting for highlighting negative things, but in the reverse, it also highlights the things that are going really well. So in the one chart, we were able to look at the employees that were meeting their target or performing really well, but we were also able to pull out those that maybe aren't performing as well. And with text analytics, we're able to highlight the positive feedback that's being received. We can structure the reporting that we provide to celebrate wins. So when the frontline does a great job for the customer, we should design the reports to celebrate those things while also kind of pointing out the things that may not have gone as well. I know that many of our clients, because I think there's a question later, and maybe I'll just hit on it now, is, how much time should you set aside for the front line to review feedback? And there's no great answer to that. You definitely don't want it to impact their jobs. And the front line, as we talked about in terms of the weight of the world on their shoulders, they're responsible for a lot. But I know that some of our client organizations that we support today have handled that by setting aside a time up front to huddle with their teams, whether it's at a store location or whether it's a call center team, to huddle with their teams at the beginning of their shift to talk about the feedback that they received the day before, to talk about things that they're experiencing with customers and see if there's something that needs to bubble up, meaning that they're hearing it not just once, but it's happening more than once, and they think others should be prepared for it, and to just talk about what the impact of the feedback that they're receiving. And so, part of leveraging FieldCx is that it's a way to package results so that your frontline doesn't have to spend that much time to understand the feedback that they're receiving, and packaging in a way that they can quickly review it at the beginning of the day and move on. But also giving those processes where you're reviewing feedback together, whether it's before a shift or during a team meeting at some point. I think that could be another important best practice, particularly in just getting people to work together towards the customer experience.
Great, thank you. Our next question is about how data gets to FieldCx. Is the platform mobile responsive? So Jesse, if you could just talk a little bit about the data actually getting to the platform, that would be great.
Sure. So you would have your normal collection channels that would feed data into the platform. And we today the way that we build FieldCx reports is through our Dashboards 2 tool. And so you would build your dashboards in Dashboards 2, and right now it's a managed service to be able to publish to FieldCx. But we would go in and we would go ahead and publish those Dashboards 2 dashboards over into FieldCx, and you would determine which audiences you wanted to share those reports with. So the data into FieldCx is really just the same data as Dashboards 2. We apply any necessary permissions to that data to make sure that the right people are seeing the information. And as we are publishing those out, we choose what we want to share with the front line. So we will say, for example, instead of displaying all of the filters to our frontline users, we just want to display a list of 3 or 4 important filters to them, and that's what they're going to be able to have. So to be able to, or to talk to the second part of that question of whether the platform is mobile responsive, yes, FieldCx is mobile responsive. So if you're accessing it from a mobile device, it will adapt to be able to display your charts for you in an intuitive manner. We do have some upcoming improvements on that front as well to make things even more streamlined.
Great. Does the survey ask questions based on the specific employee who interacts with the client?
So typically, yes. So as part of a touchpoint survey, you would not only gauge the experiences that customers are having, but you would explore the performance of the employee that they worked with related to that specific experience. So there is a big difference between experience and performance questions, and so we need to balance those for sure. But typically frontline touchpoint surveys will include performance metrics so that we can tie those to particular employees. I will say that the ability to be able to do that is dependent on your, whether as a company you are able to identify which employees interact with specific customers. Your customers may not know exactly who they worked with, they may not remember their name, but if as part of your transactional database, if you're keeping track of the interactions that individual employees have with customers, then we can tie it to that. We have to be careful. We like to use that for performance tracking and for coaching and training. We definitely don't want to use a CX program as a stick necessarily, but we do want to make sure that if there are problems at the front line with employee experience, given that they are the face of the company, that we're addressing shortcomings and that we're retraining or coaching to shore up performance. But I think that we want to balance that with really understanding what experiences are. And that's also, by the way, why asking employees to give feedback on their readiness to deliver customer experience, and maybe even asking for feedback related to specific interactions that they have with customers from a 360 standpoint. So the customer is providing feedback, the employee is also giving input into that particular experience, so that you have a holistic view about what happened, because there might be things that are impeding the employee in delivering that customer experience that's beyond their own performance or beyond their own coaching and training, and it would be important to understand that from a root cause standpoint.
Great, thank you. Next question is, what are the role of incentives in encouraging the best frontline experiences? What types of things should we incent on?
Yep, so this is kind of related to my last response, but incentives is a really big topic, but I'll attempt to touch it here. I know that we just recently had a broader webinar on incentives, so we could probably refer people there if they need more detail, but a lot of times touchpoint surveys, and particularly frontline focus surveys and customer experience management, do have an incentive connection. And the reason why the incentives are there are because they want to reward people when they're really delivering for the customer, because it's important to the organization. Their incentives are also used as a way to motivate people, so that if they see that maybe they're underperforming or they're not meeting a goal, that they're working towards continually improving at an individual level through employee performance plans, so that they can't ultimately meet that target. So I think that incentives are really effective in those ways, and I think that when we think about what to incent on, the best incentives are ones that the employees themselves can control. So they know if they're underperforming on a target, they know that they could request additional coaching or training, or they know how to move the needle to improve, or they're at least given the vehicle to improve. So I think those areas of performance are great ways to incent on, because it is in the employee's control to improve.
Great, thank you. I think we have time for one more question, and then if your question was not answered, we will follow up after the fact. So to close it out, we talked a lot about frontline CX strategies, but I figure closing it out with a question that came up about best practices for other layers of employees within the organization would be great. So Jennifer, can you speak to that?
Yeah, so I think that, in a lot of cases, measurement of customer experience at the frontline is easy, because you know exactly what customers experience. You can clearly define how the employee impacts customers' experience and how they deliver. For other layers of the organization, back office support or people that aren't customer facing, it can be a bit more difficult, because you first have to define their role for the customer, and you have to define how they're impacting customer experience in their role and measure in those ways. So it might be easier for, the immediate back office. So if you think about mortgage originations, for example, those people aren't necessarily visible when you think about underwriting. Those people aren't visible to the customer necessarily, but they're certainly an important cog in the wheel of customer experience around mortgage origination. So you think about it in those ways. Every employee within the organization, regardless of their role, and their stewardship and their responsibilities, has some impact on the customer. And so when you want to think about that from a service climate standpoint, or when you want to think about that from adding a few questions related to customer experience within your employee surveys, think about it in terms of what is that particular role's responsibility to the customer.
Thank you. All right, and with that, we are at time. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We really appreciate your attention today, and thanks to our presenters for all their work on this. As I said, we will follow up with answers to any questions that were not answered on this webcast, as well as the recording of the webcast. Thanks again, and have a great rest of the day.